For most of us, the idea of drinking blood sounds like something out of a horror movie, a vampire myth, a dark fantasy. But what if I told you that, centuries ago, ordinary people, nobles, priests, even doctors, believed blood could save your life? In the Middle Ages, across Europe, blood wasn't just a symbol of life. It was life. And for some, drinking it was seen as a way to steal nature's most powerful energy, vitality itself. To understand why medieval people drank blood, we have to go back to a time when science and superstition walked hand in hand. When medicine was more magic than biology. When sickness was thought to be a punishment from God or a curse, or a misalignment of mysterious forces inside the body. Doctors at the time followed what was called the humoral theory, an idea inherited from the ancient Greeks. According to this belief, the human body was ruled by 4 fluids, or humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Health meant keeping these in perfect balance. Illness meant something was off. And for many, blood was considered the most powerful humor of them all. So, what did you do when you were weak, pale, or dying? You added more blood. It wasn't uncommon for medieval doctors to recommend drinking fresh blood, preferably from a young, healthy person or animal. They believed it would replenish your life force, restore balance, and cure disease. In Germany during the 16th century, it was common for spectators at public executions to rush to the scaffold after a beheading, holding cups or pieces of cloth. They weren't there to mourn, they were there to collect the blood of the executed. They believed that drinking this warm, fresh blood could heal them of epilepsy or chronic illness. In some towns, executioners even sold it as a side business. Gruesome? Absolutely. But to them it made sense. After all, if blood was life, then taking it directly from someone who had just died meant absorbing their strength before it faded away. It's easy to think of this as pure madness, but it wasn't just peasants or desperate villagers doing it. Even learned physicians and philosophers discussed blood as a substance of power. The famous Swiss physician Paracelsus in the 1500s claimed that the essence of life, the archeus, lived within blood. Consuming it, he said, could rejuvenate the body and even extend life. And this wasn't limited to drinking. Blood was used in every possible way. It was mixed into medicines, rubbed on wounds, boiled into potions, and sometimes used in cosmetics for noble women who believed it would keep their skin young. One strange case comes from the diary of a French physician in the early 1600s. He describes a noble woman who believed bathing in the blood of virgins would restore her beauty. Centuries later, this idea would twist into the legend of Countess Elizabeth Bathory, accused of killing young girls and bathing in their blood to stay young forever. Of course, much of that story was myth. But the root idea, that blood had magical healing power, was very real. And it wasn't just in Europe. Across the world, blood rituals appeared in different forms. In ancient China, drinking animal blood was believed to strengthen the spirit. In parts of Africa and South America, warriors drank the blood of enemies or animals to gain courage and power. In every culture, blood symbolized something sacred, the very bridge between life and death. But in medieval Europe, where plague, famine, and superstition ruled daily life, blood became more than a symbol. It became medicine, a last hope, a desperate attempt to cheat death. Yet, behind this obsession lay something deeper. A question humanity has always asked: what is the true essence of life? People in the Middle Ages didn't have microscopes. They couldn't see cells or bacteria. But they could see that when blood spilled, life drained away. To them it was obvious, blood must be life itself. So, if life could be lost through blood, perhaps it could be gained the same way. In their minds, drinking blood wasn't evil. It was practical. It was survival. But this fascination with blood didn't stop with medicine. Soon, it would evolve into something darker. Rituals, secret societies, and even the origins of vampire legends that still haunt our stories today. As centuries passed, the belief that blood carried power didn't fade, it grew stronger. But something began to change. What once was seen as a form of medicine slowly became something more mysterious, more spiritual, and, in the eyes of the church, more dangerous. In medieval Europe, religion shaped every thought, every law, every explanation for the unknown. And at the center of that belief system was blood, the blood of Christ. In the Christian world, blood wasn't just a symbol of life. It was the key to salvation. The Bible said that Christ's blood washed away sin. Every Sunday, believers gathered for Holy Communion, a ritual where they drank wine said to become the blood of Christ. To them, this wasn't a metaphor. It was sacred truth. The priest would lift the chalice and declare, "This is my blood." And the people believed that by drinking it, they were sharing in divine life itself. So, in a strange way, medieval Europe already had a form of ritual blood drinking. Only this one was holy, not human. But beyond the church walls, the line between holy blood and forbidden blood was easy to blur. In a world filled with disease and fear, the desire for protection and healing often led people to take faith into their own hands. Some began to mix religion with superstition. They collected blood from saints' relics, claiming it could cure the sick. Others drank the blood of animals during secret rituals, believing it could ward off evil spirits. And when the church found out, it wasn't pleased. By the 12th and 13th centuries, church authorities were cracking down on pagan blood rituals. People caught using blood in magical healing practices were accused of witchcraft or heresy. To drink blood outside of the Holy Sacrament was seen as a direct insult to God. Yet behind closed doors it continued, especially in rural villages where old traditions never really died. Peasants believed that the blood of certain animals, like roosters, goats, or even black cats, could protect against curses. Some thought that smearing blood on a sick person's forehead could drive away demons. These weren't acts of evil to them. They were acts of desperation, a mix of faith, fear, and folklore. One recorded case from 1489 tells of a small village in Bavaria where a farmer's wife secretly collected her husband's blood after he was wounded in a fight. She boiled it with herbs and forced him to drink it, believing it would keep his spirit inside his body. When word spread, the church accused her of sorcery. But the idea that blood could hold a person's spirit wasn't unique to her. Many in that era believed that a soul's strength was tied to its blood. And when that blood was lost, part of the soul was lost with it. That belief would soon inspire one of history's most chilling myths, the vampire. The earliest vampire stories didn't begin with fangs or bats. They began with corpses that didn't decay fast enough. In some villages, people exhumed bodies they believed to be revenants, the living dead who rose at night to drink the blood of the living. When they dug up these corpses, they sometimes found fresh blood around the mouth or in the chest cavity, not realizing it was a natural part of decomposition. To them it was proof, the dead were feeding on the living. And so, villagers began to burn bodies, drive stakes through hearts, and spread tales of nocturnal blood drinkers who walked among them. It was fear mixed with misunderstanding, science not yet born, faith stretched too far. Interestingly, many of these vampire stories came from the same regions where blood rituals were practiced for healing. In a sense, the idea of taking life through blood simply flipped, from healer to monster. One took blood to restore life, the other to steal it. By the 1500s, the church's influence over medicine was fading, and new thinkers began to question the old ideas. But even as science advanced, the fascination with blood, and the fear of it, remained. Some nobles paid alchemists to create elixirs of life, using blood and gold. Others experimented with transfusions between animals and humans, centuries before it was safe. The desire to use blood as a bridge between life and death never truly went away, it simply changed form. From sacred wine to secret potions, from holy relics to horror legends, blood had become more than a liquid. It was the most powerful symbol of all, of life, death, faith, and fear combined. But what if this fascination didn't end in the Middle Ages? What if, in a different way, it still lives on today, in modern medicine, beauty treatments, and the never-ending search for youth? That's where our story heads next, into the world of science, where the medieval thirst for blood transforms into something surprisingly modern. By the 16th and 17th centuries, Europe was changing. The medieval world of superstition was slowly giving way to curiosity, reason, and discovery. The Renaissance had arrived, and with it, a new hunger for knowledge. But even as scholars began to question the old ways, one belief never fully disappeared: the idea that blood was the secret to life itself. Doctors no longer relied on leeches and magic charms alone. They started studying the human body, dissecting corpses, observing veins, and trying to understand how blood actually moved. In 1628, an English physician named William Harvey made a discovery that changed everything. He proved that blood circulates continuously through the body, pumped by the heart. For the first time in history, blood wasn't just seen as a mystical fluid, it was understood as a system. A living river that flowed within us. This discovery sparked a new idea. If blood carries life, could one person's blood restore another's? And that's when things got wild. By the mid-1600s, scientists in England, France, and Italy began experimenting with blood transfusions. Not with the knowledge or safety we have today, but with bold curiosity and a bit of madness. One of the first experiments was carried out by a French physician named Jean-Baptiste Denis in 1667. He transfused the blood of a lamb into a teenage boy who was ill. Miraculously, the boy survived, at least for a short time. Dennis was hailed as a genius. People believed he had found a way to purify human souls with the innocence of animal blood. But soon his experiments took a darker turn. When one of his later patients died, Dennis was accused of murder. His transfusions were banned by the French government, and soon after by the church as well. Across the Channel in England, similar experiments were happening. Scientists at the Royal Society transfused animal blood into humans, hoping to cure madness, depression, or weakness. Some reported strange results, patients becoming unusually calm, others violently ill. To the people of the time, it seemed both miraculous and terrifying. Blood, once used in rituals and medicine, was now a tool of science, but still felt like magic. Even after these early failures, the fascination with blood's power never disappeared. It simply took on new forms. In the 18th and 19th centuries, transfusion experiments returned, now with human-to-human trials. Doctors began to understand that animal blood was incompatible, but human blood might just work. In 1818, British obstetrician James Blundell performed the first successful human blood transfusion to save a woman from postpartum bleeding. She survived. For the first time, blood had truly saved a life, not through superstition but through science. Yet, the old idea of blood as a source of vitality remained deeply rooted in human imagination. The more we learned, the more mysterious it seemed. By the 19th century, stories of vampires, resurrectionists, and secret societies obsessed with blood began filling literature. Bram Stoker's Dracula, published in 1897, was no coincidence. It emerged at a time when real doctors were experimenting with transfusions and talking about the energy of life flowing through veins. In Dracula, drinking blood became a metaphor, a fusion of medieval superstition and modern science. The Count's bite wasn't just horror, it was symbolic of immortality, rejuvenation, and the timeless human dream to conquer death. But what's fascinating is that even modern scientists of the time were, in their own way, chasing the same dream. In the late 1800s, some physicians suggested that blood might hold the secret to youth. There were reports of blood injections given to older patients to restore vitality. In Germany and Russia, experiments were conducted on rejuvenation through the transfusion of young blood into older bodies. It sounds medieval, but it was real science, or at least what passed for it at the time. And strangely enough, that idea has survived into the 21st century. Today, researchers are still studying how young blood affects aging. Modern experiments on mice have shown that when the blood of a young mouse is introduced into an old one, signs of aging reverse. Memory improves, muscles strengthen, and even skin becomes healthier. It's as if, after all these centuries, we're still haunted by the same question medieval doctors once asked: can blood give us life again? From the bloodletting bowls of the Middle Ages to the sterile labs of modern science, our relationship with blood has always been one of awe and obsession. We no longer drink it, but we still chase its secrets. And while religion and superstition once guided this fascination, now technology and biology have taken their place. But even with all our knowledge, one mystery remains unsolved. Why does blood hold such deep symbolic power over us? Why does it still make us tremble, in fear, in reverence, or in desire? To answer that, we need to look at something even deeper: how blood shaped not just medicine but our entire culture, art, and imagination. As Europe entered the age of empires, blood was no longer just a liquid flowing through veins. It became a metaphor for everything: power, purity, loyalty, even destiny. The medieval fascination with blood transformed into something cultural, something political, and something deeply human. It began with a single word: bloodline. In a world built on hierarchy, kings and queens didn't just claim their right to rule, they claimed it through their blood. Royal families believed their blood carried divine authority, a sacred link between heaven and the throne. To spill royal blood was to defy God himself. You can see this belief everywhere, in medieval coats of arms and family crests, in songs and stories. A prince wasn't noble because of his deeds, but because of the blood that ran through him. Blue blood, a term still used today, comes from Spanish nobility who prided themselves on their pale skin that showed blue veins, proof, they believed, of pure, untarnished lineage. It separated them from the commoners, whose skin was darker from outdoor labor. Blood became a social marker, not just of health or life but of class. And the idea of pure blood took on a dangerous power. In 15th century Spain, after centuries of coexistence between Christians, Jews, and Muslims, the Catholic monarchs introduced the concept of limpieza de sangre, purity of blood. Those who had Jewish or Muslim ancestry were considered tainted, even if they had converted to Christianity. The purity of one's faith was measured by ancestry, not belief. It was one of the earliest examples of blood being used as a tool of exclusion, and it set the stage for centuries of racial ideology. The irony was haunting. For centuries, people had believed blood could heal, could unite humanity through life itself. Now it was being used to divide. Even outside of politics, blood symbolism was everywhere. In art, it represented sacrifice. The bleeding Christ was the centerpiece of countless paintings and sculptures. In literature, blood became a sign of guilt. Think of Shakespeare's Macbeth, where Lady Macbeth's hands could never be washed clean. In war, soldiers swore oaths sealed in blood, pledging their lives to one another. In death, poets spoke of blood as the ultimate price for freedom. But for ordinary people, blood remained close. In childbirth, in sickness, in death. Medieval life was full of it. Women died giving birth, men died in battle, and the blood that flowed was a constant reminder of how fragile life was. In many ways, the fascination with blood was simply an attempt to make sense of mortality, to give meaning to the pain, the sacrifice, and the loss that defined daily existence. And yet, the symbolism of blood didn't stay confined to Europe. Across the world, it became part of ritual and identity. In Japan, samurai saw blood as the mark of honor. Dying for one's master was a noble death. In Mesoamerican cultures, blood offerings were central to their religion. The Aztecs believed that the gods had given their own blood to create humanity, and that humans must return that gift through sacrifice to keep the world in balance. To them, blood wasn't evil, it was sacred currency, a debt owed to creation itself. Even in African traditions, blood oaths sealed trust between tribes or families. To mix blood was to become kin, bound by spirit and promise. From royal palaces to sacred temples, from Europe to the Americas, blood was always the same: life, death, and everything in between. It was something we all shared, yet something that could divide us more fiercely than anything else. By the 18th and 19th centuries, as science advanced, this old symbolism of blood began to evolve again. The discovery of blood types by Carl Landsteiner in 1901 finally explained why early transfusions had killed so many. For the first time, the mystery of blood's danger and power had a rational explanation. But by then, the metaphor of blood had already seeped into culture too deeply to ever disappear. Even today, we speak of bad blood between rivals, blood ties between families, blood brothers as unbreakable friends. The word still carries weight, the same mix of fear, loyalty, and awe it held in the Middle Ages. And maybe that's why the fascination never ended. Because behind every empire, every faith, every war and peace treaty, there's always been one thing binding us all: blood. It's both a reminder of how connected we are, and how fragile that connection can be. But there's one more chapter to this story, a surprising one. Because in our modern world, the obsession with blood has returned once again, not in rituals or royal lines but in labs, clinics, and billion-dollar industries. From anti-aging treatments using young plasma to celebrity vampire facials, humanity is still chasing the same dream it began in the dark streets of medieval Europe. The dream that somewhere within our blood lies the secret to eternal youth. If you think humanity's fascination with blood ended with the Middle Ages, think again. We no longer rush to the scaffold with cups to collect the blood of the condemned. We don't secretly boil it into potions or smear it on wounds. But in many ways, our modern world has simply found new, more sophisticated ways to chase the same ancient dream. A dream to heal. A dream to stay young. A dream to live forever. Today, blood is still one of the most powerful substances known to humankind. In hospitals, it saves lives every second. Every year, millions of people survive only because of a stranger's blood donation. The medieval fantasy of one person's blood giving life to another is now an everyday reality, made safe by science. But beyond medicine, something else is happening. Something that sounds eerily familiar. In recent years, researchers have revisited an old, controversial question. Could young blood actually reverse aging? It started in the early 2000s when scientists at Stanford University stitched two mice together, one old, one young, so that they shared a single bloodstream. The result shocked them. The older mouse's muscles grew stronger. Its memory improved. Even its organs began to regenerate. The researchers had rediscovered an ancient fantasy, now dressed in lab coats. The idea that youth could be transferred through blood, the same belief that once sent people rushing to drink it from the freshly dead. Soon, private companies began to take notice. In Silicon Valley, entrepreneurs and billionaires started funding experiments on young plasma therapy, infusing older people with the blood of the young in hopes of slowing aging. Some called it the next frontier of longevity science. Others called it modern vampirism. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration quickly stepped in, warning that these treatments were unproven and potentially dangerous. But the fascination didn't fade. Even today, some private clinics quietly offer rejuvenation transfusions, echoing the same promise medieval alchemists once made: drink and you shall be renewed. And it's not just medicine. The obsession with blood has bled into pop culture, beauty, and even technology. In 2013, a Hollywood celebrity made headlines for undergoing a vampire facial, a cosmetic treatment where a person's own blood is drawn, processed, and then injected back into the face to rejuvenate the skin. It sounds shocking, but it works by stimulating collagen production, a scientifically grounded idea. Still, the name stuck for a reason. Vampire facial. Because deep down, the symbolism of blood still triggers something primal in us. We're fascinated by it, and a little afraid of it. Blood remains the most intimate symbol of life, death, and power. It's used in movies to shock, in rituals to unite, and in science to heal. It's both sacred and terrifying, both ancient and modern. When you think about it, our entire civilization is built on the symbolism of blood. The red cross of hospitals. The blood oath of friendship. The phrase blood, sweat, and tears. Even our heroes in fiction, from Dracula to superheroes like Iron Man, are bound to it. Blood fuels sacrifice. Blood equals life. And yet, for all our progress, one thing hasn't changed since medieval times: our fear of losing it and our hope in what it can give. Back in the Middle Ages, people drank blood because they didn't understand how it worked. They only knew it was powerful. Today we understand the chemistry, the cells, the plasma. But emotionally we're still the same. We still see blood as the ultimate essence of who we are. We study it, store it, transfuse it. We use it to trace ancestry and even decode genetic destiny. The medieval belief that blood defines your identity wasn't entirely wrong, only misunderstood. Now, through DNA we can literally read our history written in blood. Perhaps that's why this fascination never dies. Because blood isn't just biology, it's story. Every drop carries memory. Every pulse carries proof of existence. From the candlelit surgeries of medieval doctors to the sterile labs of modern scientists, blood has been humanity's mirror, reflecting our greatest fears and our deepest desires. The desire to heal, to belong, to live longer. So when we ask, why did medieval people drink blood? Maybe the answer is simpler than we think. They did it for the same reason we still chase its secrets today. Because in every era, every culture, every human heart, blood represents the same thing: the line between life and death. And deep down, we all want to know if that line can ever truly be crossed. The tools may have changed. The rituals may have evolved. But the thirst, that eternal thirst for life, still runs red.